All right, welcome to Pro Football First 50 Years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970, especially if you're going to go back in time and check out a game like maybe from the 1920s or the 30s. Oh, sure, I mean, you can go online and find a box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game. Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on in today's game. Two very successful teams for the 1959 season. Both finished tied for second place. The Philadelphia Eagles traveled to Cleveland Stadium to take on those Cleveland Browns November 8th, 1959. Now, although they both finished with identical. You ever saw the movie My Cousin Vinny? You'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the movie My Cousin Vinny, I highly recommend it. Both finished with 7-5 records. They both finished tied for second place in the Eastern Division, behind the Giants. One was a very, very, my opinion, of course, obviously, very, very successful season, and the other one was, a little on the disappointing side. The Eagles in 1958 had two wins. So you go from 2 wins to 7 wins in 1 year. I mean, you go plus 5, and it was only a 12-game season. I mean, that's a heck of a turnaround. Then, of course, they took that even to another level in 1960. They went from obviously 2 wins to 7 wins to 10 wins in 1960, and then won the whole kit and caboodle, the 1960 championship. And, of course, they put the only blemish on Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packer, the postseason record. Vince Lombardi went to 10 postseason games. He was 9-1. His only loss was his first one ever, first postseason game ever, was against the Eagles in 1960. But for the Browns, 7-5 is, every year. My goodness. Even going back to the All-American Football Conference, every year. 46 to 49, the All-American Football Conference. Not only did they make it to the championship, but they won the championship 4 straight years. Then they come to the NFL. 1950, they go to the championship game. 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, they go into the championship game. 57, they go to the championship game. So, perennial. Every year they have a chance, to go to the championship game. So, 7-5, and not only that, but they won up 3 games out of first place. It was a little bit of a disappointing season for Brown. They had a lot of good players, and of course Paul Brown, but is the coach of the Cleveland Browns. But Buck Shaw was no slouch either. Now let's pull up the two teams here. Start off with the Eagles. The team had a very successful exhibition season, but once again, it goes both ways. You can look at it both ways, right? One, it's exhibition. So, if you're playing the games, you like to at least win them. But then again, if you don't win the games, it's not the end of the world. Why? Because it's just exhibition. So you'll see here, the Eagles won the first one. Then they lost 4 out of their next 5. So they were 2-4 in preseason. And of course, back in 59, they played a grand total of 18 games, 6 preseason games. So basically, right, a third of the games that they played were exhibition games. Now you see, they were very, very consistent. They were not a very good away team. Newsflash: this game was in Cleveland, so spoiler alert: the Browns won this game. But the Eagles were very good at home. They put the only one of only 2 losses on the Giants during the Giants had during the regular season. The Giants, of course, lost the championship game. But the Giants only lost 2 games during the regular season. And one of them was right here where they got the Eagles just straight up whooped up on them. I mean, the Eagles won by 4 touchdowns. Well, the 4 touchdowns was that was also the equivalent of what Tommy McDonald scored in that particular game. He had 3 receiving touchdowns, and he ran a punt back for a touchdown against the Giants. I mean, Tommy McDonald was unbelievable in the 1959 season. But the Eagles are very, very consistent. They would lose a game, then they would win 2. They would lose a game, then they would win 2. Then they would lose a game, then they would what? Yep, win 2. I mean, as you see right here. They started off the season, they lost to the 49ers, then they would win 2. Then they lost the game to the Giants, then they would win 2. Then they lost the game to the Browns. This game we're talking about. Then they would win 2. Then they lost again. So very, very consistent. But as you see here, they were not very good on the road. They killed the Giants. I mean, and they started off the season away in San Francisco. They lost that one. But then they killed the Giants at home. Then they would go on the road against the Giants, and the Giants would beat them. Let's see. Then they played this game here on the road against the Browns, 28-7. Then they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers, 31-0. So they were not the best road team, but they were very, very good at home. And of course, as I said, 1960, they went to 10-2, won the whole thing. So I mean, fantastic. This was, my opinion, of course, a very successful season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, with 3 games left in the season, both these teams still had a chance at winning the division, or at least maybe tying for the division. With 3 games left, the Eagles had 3 losses, and the Giants had 2. So the Eagles had a pretty kind of hoping maybe to win out and have the Giants maybe stumble at least once in their final 3 games. Well, neither one happened. As you can see here, the Eagles lost 2 out of their final 3, and the Giants would win their final 3. Now, if we go over to the Browns here, right, once again, they did not have the greatest preseason either. Right? I think they were 2-4 as well, right? Yeah, they lost their first 3. Then they beat the Rams, who were not a very good team. Then they beat the Bears, so they were 2-4. But as I said right here, I mean, these guys actually they were with 4 games left. They were tied with the Giants. Both teams, I believe, had 2 losses with 4 games left. And let me see. I'm going to try to see here. Yes, yeah, okay. So with, excuse me, 4 games left to go in the season. The Browns had 2 losses. The Giants had 2 losses. Any team's division. The Browns here, they beat the Eagles. I mean, the Steelers were 6-5-1. The 49ers at the end of the season fell apart. And so the Browns did not have the toughest schedule for final 4 games of the season, but you see that they lost a 1-point loss here to the Steelers. They lost a 1-point game here to the 49ers. Then the Giants just straight up blew them out, blew the doors off them at Yankee Stadium. And then they would go into Philadelphia in the final game of the season to beat these Eagles once again. But, I mean, it was the same thing here. They had a chance. The Giants won their final 4 games of the season. The Giants, this game right here, would lose to the Steelers, giving the Giants their 2nd loss of the season. So coming in with 4 games left, they both had 2 losses. The Giants were 6-2. The Browns were 6-2. So the Giants would win their final 4 games and finish 10-2. And, of course, the Browns would lose 3 of their final 4 to finish 7-5. So, I mean, Paul Brown coach team, obviously, with the stars that the Browns had on their team, to finish 7-5 was rather disappointing, especially, I mean, to lose 3 of the final 4 games. Very, very tough. Very, very tough. This is right here, November 8th, 1959. Games played at good old Cleveland Stadium. Ah, boy. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Good old Cleveland Stadium. Let's what's Wikipedia got to say on Cleveland Stadium here? A lot of famous games got played there. Championship games, football championship games got played there as well. Cleveland Stadium, commonly known as Municipal Stadium or Cleveland Municipal Stadium, multi-purpose stadium in Cleveland, Ohio. It was one of the early multi-purpose stadiums built to accommodate both baseball and football. Stadium opened in 1931 and is best known as the longtime home of the Cleveland Indians from 1932 to 33, and then again from 37 to 93. Let's see here. And then, of course, the Cleveland Browns from 1946 to 1995. Wow, a long time. Of course, from 46 to 49, they were all in the All-American Football Conference. Let's see, in addition to hosting other teams, other sports, and concerts, the stadium hosted 3 All-American Championship games, 6 NFL Championship games, served as one of the host venues of the 48 and 54 World Series. Let's see, 4-time host of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, site of the Dog Pound, of course, Red Right 88, and The Drive. Wow, yeah, I tell you. It was not Cleveland in the 80s, obviously, we're going, pretty much, you're talking Red Right 88, we're talking the 1980 season, right? So on all, of course, then with The Drive and the year after that, you had the fumble. So the Browns were really, pretty much a good, solid force in the NFL throughout the 80s, But of course, and the Dog Pound is a good thing, but Red Right 88 was not a good thing, and The Drive was not a good thing. Through most of its tenure as a baseball facility, the stadium was the largest in Major League Baseball by seating capacity, seating over 78,000 initially and over 74,000 in its final years. It was superseded only by the LA Coliseum from 58 to 61 when the Dodgers moved there briefly. Let's see. For football, the stadium seated approximately 80,000 people, ranking as one of the largest seating capacities in the NFL. It's just me. I can't stand Art Modell, but former Brown owner Art Modell took over control of the stadium from the city in the 1970s. And while his organizations made improvements to the facility, it continued to decline. The Indians played their final game at the stadium in October 1993, and then moved to Jacobs Field. Although plans were announced to renovate the stadium for use by the Browns in 1995, Modell announced his intentions to move the team to Baltimore, citing the state of Cleveland Stadium as a major factor. And I can understand that. I just can't stand Art Modell. The Browns played their final game at the stadium in December 1995, after which they were renamed the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you move. I'm sure he did everything. He probably possibly could and all that stuff. But you take Cleveland Browns out of Cleveland. I mean, you're to me, you're a piece of trash, absolute piece of trash. So I just can't stand the guy. And I said, please forgive me. See, the stadium was demolished in 1996 to make way for the Cleveland Browns Stadium. I mean, so if the stadium was demolished, I mean, you couldn't find some place to go for a couple of years while they built the new Cleveland Browns Stadium, because the new Cleveland Browns Stadium is pretty nice. You couldn't find some place to go? I'm sure you could. But anyway, let's see. The history. Cleveland Brown Stadium came from city manager William R. Hopkins, Cleveland Indians president, Ernest Bernard, real estate magnate, and future Indians president. And some brothers who thought that the attraction of a stadium would benefit area commerce in general and their own commercial interests in downtown Cleveland in particular. However, some incorrectly stated that it was built in a failed bid to attract the 1932 Summer Olympics, which had been awarded to the Los Angeles in 1923. Let's see. Long before ground was broken on the stadium, another common misconception is that Cleveland Stadium was a works progress, administration progress. Remember 1928, Cleveland voters passed a $2.5 million levy for a fireproof stadium on the lakefront. Actual construction costs overran that amount by $500,000. But you can see, you see the picture right here. Small as it is, I do apologize. Cleveland Stadium under construction in 1931. Stadium was built for football as well as the Cleveland Indians, who played their first game there on July 31st, 1932. Let's see here. Here we go. Here are the Browns. Cleveland Browns, original members of the All-American Football Conference, began playing at the facility in 1946 and played there through 1995. So basically like 50 years. Shame. Stadium was the site of the All-American Football Conference Championship game in 46, 48, and 49. All Browns wins. The Browns joined the NFL in 1950 and hosted the championship game out of 1950, 52, 54, 64, and 68. 50, they beat the Rams. 52, they lost to the Lions. 54, they beat the Lions. 64, they beat the Colts. And 68, the Colts beat them. First Brown game at the stadium was also the first All-American Football Conference game where the Browns hosted the Miami Seahawks. There you go. On September 6, 1946, the Browns won the game 44-0 and drew 60,000 fans. Very impressive. That was then a record for a professional football crowd. During the 1980s, the center field bleachers at the east end of the stadium was home to many of the club's most avid fans and became known as the Dog Pound, after the barks that fans made to disrupt opposing teams' offensive plays. Of course, the stadium was also the site of two notable moments in Cleveland Browns sports history. The playoff game between the Oakland Raiders, right? Red Right 88. And, of course, the drive, the 1986 AFC Championship game. Final game of the stadium was held on December 17, 1995, an emotional 26-10 win over the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think that was the final. That was the final game with Bill Belichick as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He had a successful tenure there, and when they packed up, of course, Art Nordell, didn't keep Bill Belichick around. So, but all right. So let's get some pictures here. It's a shame, once again, just to me, that's growing up. That's what obviously the Indians played there. Obviously the Browns played there. Now I still got to give the Browns credit. Obviously, is that the stadium they have now it's on grass, it's outdoors, and it's in the weather element. So I got to give them some credit there. I just hate when those old stadiums. They obviously it is what it is. Sometimes they just run their course, and you got to knock them down. All right, what do we got here? Share the screen, and the Cleveland Browns. There we go. Got some nice pictures. Yeah, there you go. Huh? The man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy Brown. Good luck trying to tackle that guy. Huh? Here's a shot here. That was the final game. Here's the final game at Cleveland Stadium. Yeah, I mean, just beautiful ballpark. I mean, obviously could be very, very, it's one of those old time stadiums, right? You got sometimes a little obstructed view seats, right? Yeah. But I mean, held a lot of people. Oop, bam. This is obviously the baseball side of it. I mean, you can see where, held a lot of people. I mean, upper deck, right out here, Yeah, so it held a lot of people. As I said, I mean, the amount of, this looks like maybe it could be the Steelers they're playing against. Obviously, this is 1959. It says the 1959 Cleveland Browns here. Washington Redskin guy trying to tackle Jim Brown. Good luck there. But obviously a lot of, this wasn't, it was this is, no, that's not that. What do we got here? We got, what year is this here? 1959, the Browns and the 49ers program. November 28th. So this is the 49ers won this game by a point. Yeah. But you can see it, long. Right. But of course they called it obviously the mistake by the lake. I mean, it's right by, the lake. So I mean, you could get, here you go. Right. Talking about that, right? There you go. Right. I mean, you can't get much closer to a lake than this, right? I mean, with the winds and obviously being in Cleveland, it could get cold. Here goes a little bit. There's another shot of it background there too, right? So you can see how, it would get very, very cold there. This is another shot. Yeah, see, right, and you see the open end over here, right? A lot of people call it the mistake by the lake. I mean, just the players who played there over the years. Obviously not only that, but also the the baseball players, the football players who played there. Just unfortunately, it's hey, once again, right there, right? Say, I mean, you ain't get much closer, right, than that. I mean, and when it was, when the weather went bad, it was bad. We got here. WordPress, September 19th, Saturday evening, 1959. So this was a preseason game. Let's see here. Which game was this one here? Okay, that was the last preseason game of the 59 season. The following week, they started off their regular season. So it was Saturday night. So the Browns hosted the Chicago Bears. Oh, here you go. I mean, just right there you go. Huh? That was 1958. What do we got? September 20th. So that was a preseason game once again. What is this? Is this 1955. These are all on eBay. So if you want to buy any of these, are on eBay. Oh, is this all on this thing? Yep, here it is. There we go. Okay, cool. Cleveland Browns versus the Philadelphia Eagles. November 8th, 1959. So, I don't know. It's out of stock, so I'm not sure. if this was on eBay or exactly what it was, but apparently it's sold out. But I mean, the designs that they have, just the ball goes through the Browns' hands and lands into the hands of a ref. I mean, just crazy. His official program is 35 cents. So if you had 35 cents, if November 8th, 1959, you get yourself a program to this game. So that's what the program of this game looked like. All right. So what's the word on the street here? What do we got? Once again, it's just, so I mean, for me anyway, I'm just being old time fart here. I love that they could just, I go with the Wrigley Field, Fenway Park, they're able to keep those stadiums, right? So some of them they can, I guess, save, and others is just not feasible money-wise. All right, so we'll go to the Plain Dealer, which is an Ohio paper. The November 8th, 1959 edition of the Plain Dealer. All right. Surprising Eagles, bar Browns path. And then here's some Eagles right here. Coach Buck Shaw. Let me refresh. Coach Buck Shaw, Tommy McDonald, and Norm Van Brocklin. Eagles plot air strategy. Yeah. Look at Tommy McDonald. He's freaking. He's laughing up a storm there. Coach Buck Shaw, Tommy McDonald in the center, and Norm Van Brocklin on the right. Discuss passing plans for today's battle with the Browns. McDonald has caught 7 touchdown passes this year, all from Van Brocklin. All right. One of the surprise teams of the National Football League provides the opposition for the Browns this afternoon with 50,000 expected at the stadium. Philadelphia Eagles, who will face the 2 p.m. kickoff as 8-point underdogs, figured to be battling for the basement in the preseason expiring. Instead, they have a 5-2 record and are tied with the Browns for second place in the Eastern Division. Coach Buck Shaw, who saw his club win only 2 games last season, decided on a thorough house cleaning. He has been moving and testing talent, and as of now, half of the 36-man squad is new to the Philadelphia uniform or Philadelphia roster. The Eagles opened the season with a loss to another team, which since has proved a real challenger in the West, the San Francisco 49ers. Next game, the Eagles surprising whomping or opened up a can of whoop butt on the Giants. They beat them 49-21. That was the high tide for the Philadelphia club, which has also defeated the Steelers, the Cards, and the Redskins. And New York has won a return bout 24-7. Last 2 Sundays, the Eagles have been put through the ringer. Shaw's club came from 24 points back to catch the Cardinals 28-24 2 weeks ago, and last Sunday scored all points in the first half to defeat Washington 30-23. The Browns returned from their exciting victory at Baltimore in poor health. Paul Brown said he won't know until game time about the ailing Jimmy Ray Smith, Lou Groza, Warren Lahr, and Bob Gain. Mel Plum, who will start as quarterback, as usual, inherits the field goal and extra point kicking if Groza, who has a strained back, can't play. Dick Shafrath is the fill-in for Gain at end, and Chuck Knoll, possibly you know him, right, would move in for Smith at left guard. Willie Davis, another future Hall of Famer who got right, his best well-known for playing for Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers, who operated at Groza's tackle post most of last Sunday, is likely to answer the whistle there. The Eagles appear to be in good shape. The Eagles, who have been slowed by injuries, appeared to be in good shape for this one. Shaw was concerned about Tommy McDonald's jaw earlier this week, but the former Oklahoma All-American will be ready, according to the last reports. He broke it like fractured his jaw. Didn't like break it, but it fractured it in the week 1 game against the 49ers. And ever since then, he's been like eating like soup. He hasn't been able to really chew, have a solid meal. So he's lost a lot of weight. He was apparently over 180 pounds, and now he's dipping down into the 160s because he's lost a lot of weight. I mean, he's been just eating soup. So, he's not really packing on the weight. Of course, I don't know, but I don't think they, and once again, I don't know. I'm not so sure if they had like protein shakes back there, or how. McDonald is the Eagles' best deep threat as a receiver. In fact, he's probably as good as anyone else in the league. Tommy has scored 7 touchdowns. Lair, who plays the spot on the left side, who has had the flu. If he isn't ready, Ken Combs will get the call. Shaw will start a backfield which has Norm Van Brocklin at quarterback, McDonald and gotta go all the way back up the top. So here's the Giants are 5-1. The Cleveland Browns and the Philadelphia Eagles are both 4-2. There's Van Brocklin and Billy Barnes at the halfbacks and Clarence Peaks at fullback. Barnes is the team's leading ground gainer with 383 yards. Paul Brown's usual backfield of Plum at quarterback, Bobby Mitchell and Ray Renfro at halfbacks, and Jim Brown at fullback is healthy. All right. What we got here? Next, we got the Akron Beacon Journal, another Ohio paper, November 8th, 1959 edition of the Akron Beacon Journal. All right. Let me refresh this before it screws up here. Browns face another must game. Another weekend and another hurdle for the Browns in a National Football League race that presents a brand new crisis each Sunday afternoon. The hurdle here today at 2 p.m. before a crowd of about 50,000 is the Philadelphia Eagles, and the situation is every bit as dangerous for the Browns as last week's session at Baltimore. The Eagles have several things going for themselves. Philadelphia, for the first time since 1954, is in the thick of the chase entering the last half of the season. Buck Shaw's club is tied with the Browns 1 game behind Eastern Division leader New York, and the loser might very well never get back into serious contention. The Eagles are 7.5-point underdogs, which is exactly where the Browns stood before lassoing the Colts 6 days ago. And it should be pointed out that the favorites have been beaten or failed to win by the point spread in half of the 36 NFL games played to date. Remember, there's only 6 games played each week, unlike the 16 that they play nowadays. And finally, this is good an argument as any for Paul Brown to use in guarding against a letdown by his team. The Eagles handed the Giants their only defeat this fall, and that's a trick Cleveland hasn't turned since 1957. The Eagles did in sensational fashion, 49-21, and that outburst accounts for nearly half the points New York has given up all season. The Giants gained a measure of revenge 2 weeks later, 24-7, by beating the Eagles. Cleveland has won 3 straight after a somewhat shaky start and finally seems to have developed the passing attack needed to keep its running game going strong. Milt Plum is throwing and hitting more than he did last year. So far, he has completed 81 of 137 passes for 1,090 yards, and all 3 figures are well ahead of his 1958 pace. Jim Brown is 191 yards behind, I guess, the blistering record pace he set a year ago. But his current total of 737 yards is by far best in the league again. Opponents are finding it increasingly difficult to close all the doors open to Cleveland's varied attack. In addition to, we're going back up to the top here, I guess. All right. In addition to the running of Brown and Bobby Mitchell. Don't forget about Bobby Mitchell. Plum spread 80 of his completions quite evenly among Billy Houghton, Ray Renfro, Preston Carpenter, and again Brown and Mitchell. In fact, the offense has been coming along so well that it now ranks behind only those of Los Angeles and Baltimore in total yardage. The pass defense record of Cleveland's secondary, which took a beating in the barrage of aerials from Johnny Unitas, faces another stern test against the Eagles. Norm Van Brocklin has thrown and hit on more tosses than any quarterback except for Unitas this fall. Van Brocklin's favorite receivers are Tommy McDonald, Clarence Peaks, Billy Barnes, Pete Retzlaff, don't forget about him, and Dick Bielski. And the former Los Angeles Star, is also so adept at getting rid of the ball that he has been thrown for losses totaling only 35 yards, which is rather remarkable. By far the lowest in the league. The Eagles have greatly improved their offensive line and defensive backfield. Barnes, a lone rushing threat last year, is getting valuable support from Peaks and rookie Theron Sapp. And the secondary already has intercepted 12 passes, only 3 short of the 1958 total. The acquisition of former Browns Tommy Catlin and Chuck Weber has bolstered the linebacking, and the recent signing of Paige Cothran gives Philadelphia a solid field goal threat. The Browns are nursing more bumps and bruises than in recent weeks, but only Lou Groza is on the doubtful list. If Groza's sore back doesn't permit him to kick, Bob Gain and Milt Plum will handle the chores. In other games today, the Giants are at home to the Cardinals. Pittsburgh hosts Detroit. Colts are at Washington. Green Bay is at Chicago. And the 49ers are playing the Rams, just in case you're wondering. All right, now let's go to the November 8th, 1959, of the Philadelphia Inquirer. What do they got to say? Let's get a little bit of the Philadelphia flavor here. Browns' choice to beat Eagles in key NFL test. Let me refresh here, just so this doesn't go haywire on me. Confident and determined, the Eagles bid for undisputed possession of second place in an Eastern Division of the National Football League when they opposed the ever-formidable Browns at Cleveland Sunday afternoon at 2:05. The two teams, boasting identical 4-2 records, are expected to clash in freezing weather with possible snow. Whoa. But area fans will be able to watch the action in the comfort of their living rooms. The contest will be telecast here on WCAU TV, Channel 10, which is still around today. Browns are favored. The Eagles haven't beaten the Browns since 1957 and but once in 6 meetings since 1955 and are rated more than a touchdown underdog in this one, although riding a 2-game winning streak. The Browns, who jolted the world champion Baltimore, and here's the so halfway through the season, you see the Eagles have actually scored more points, but you'll notice here the Browns haven't given up many. The Browns have only given up 13 points a game, but that's going to change in the final half of the season. First downs, the Browns have got more. Rushing yardage, the Eagles got a little bit on the passing yardage, but you can see the Browns, see if you can run the ball and keep control of the ball, control the clock, right? All that, it's, obviously with their running game, really sets up their passing game. Because, if you start, just trying to, protect against their passing game, and you let Bobby Mitchell and Jimmy Brown run around, God help you. All right. The Browns, who jolted the world champion Baltimore Colts 38-31 last week, will be seeking their 4th straight. Jimmy Brown, Cleveland's great fullback, scored 5 touchdowns against the Colts and ran for 178 yards to boast his season total of 737, an average of 4.8 yards per carry. He presents a much bigger problem than Dan Bossler, who tore the Eagles line to shreds as the green and white barely squeaked past the Redskins 30-23 last Sunday at Franklin Field. But the Eagles, to a man, are convinced they can slow down Brown enough to pull off an upset. They realize a win would put them in a strong position for the rest of the race, and they see no reason why it can't be done, especially since the Browns have lost to the Giants and Steelers, two foes that have been bested by the Eagles. However, the Browns apparently have improved considerably since those early defeats. Their victory margins over the Cardinals and Redskins were much more impressive than those of the Eagles. And, of course, then the Browns would wind up winning this one by 21 points. Only the Steelers and Colts have been able to score more than 2 touchdowns against the Browns, whose defense is now regarded on par with the Giants by Eagle coach Buck Shaw. But if the Eagles are able to generate a steady attack instead of packing all their punch in a single half, such as they did against the Cardinals and the Redskins, Shaw believes the green and white should outlast the home team in a high-scoring battle. Norm Van Brocklin figures to give the Eagles an edge in passing and punting, but whether it'll be enough to offset Jimmy Brown's ground blitzes remains the big question. And here's the players. If you're looking on your TV screen here, you'll notice up here, obviously, the Eagles' 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks here. They got Sonny Jurgensen and Norm Van Brocklin, both on the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? I mean, Sonny Jurgensen is just kind of entering into the league, and Norm Van Brocklin is kind of, coming to an end. He plays one more year, and then he'll be retiring. And there's only 36 players on the team, unlike the 46 that they got a 53-man roster nowadays, but they only dress like 46 guys. So, I mean, the 36 that they had on the sideline, every man was very valuable. All right, then we got one more here. November 8th, 1959, of the Lancaster Online. The LNP, Lancaster Online, November 8th, 1959. All right, Browns are favored by 8 points over the Eagles. And we refresh here. So it's going to take about, there we go. Jimmy Brown and Tommy McDonald, 1956 teammates in the All-American backfield, match professional skill today when the Philadelphia Eagles meet the Cleveland Browns in an important National Football League game. And they both were rookies in 1957. Brown, the Browns' battering boy from Syracuse, and McDonald, the swift Sooner from Oklahoma, are the key offensive specialists in the battle at Cleveland between the leading contenders for the New York's Eastern Conference crown. With half the season gone, New York leads the division with a 5-1 record, while Cleveland and Philadelphia are tied for second at 4-2. And it has been Brown and McDonald sharing the league's touchdown lead, who have moved their clubs into threatening positions. With the Giants a 7-point home favorite over Chicago Cardinals, the pressure is heavy on the Eagles and Browns. Cleveland is favored by 8. In the Western Division, the big game is at Los Angeles, where the division-leading 49ers meet the Rams in a pick'em game. Well, the 49ers will win that one. The 49ers are 5-1. I said the 49ers are 5-1, blasted the Rams 2-4 a month ago. So, no, the 49ers will win this game. And the 49ers actually go 6-1. So, with only 5 games left, the 49ers will literally have a 2-game lead in the Western Division with 5 games left. Not only would they give up that lead, not only would they give up that 2-game lead with 5 games to go, but they would manage to finish 2 games out of first place. They totally fell apart. Final 5 weeks of the season, really losing 4 of their final 5 games. All right, so Browns, Steelers, Browns, Lions, Steelers. All right, okay, well. All right, what do we got? So what happened here? What do we got? We got We'll go to the Philadelphia Inquirer first, and that November 9th, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. What do they got to say? What happened? Browns rout the Eagles, take second place. Let me refresh here. Jimmy Brown dives over masked Eagles for a second touchdown in Sunday's game at Cleveland. Eagles defenders Jess Richardson, Marion Campbell, Don Owens, and Joe Robb are just wasting their time trying to stop the Syracuse Express, who gained 125 yards during the contest. And elusive pigskin bounces out of picture after slipping off the fingertips of two Eagles and one Brown. Aerial thrown by Cleveland's Mill Plum was intended for Ray Renfro, who's in the dark jersey, and Eagles Tom Brookshire, number 40, and Gene Johnson, number 27. Muffed chance for a fourth quarter interception. Browns breezed a 28-7 win. Elgin Baylor gets 64 points for an NBA mark as Celtics lose. 64 points for Elgin Baylor. Then, of course, his eventual Warriors beat Royals as Wilt gets 32. Elgin Baylor played with Wilt Chamberlain when they were both with the Lakers. But let's talk about football, shall we? Mitchell dashes 65 yards for TD in a 28-7 triumph. Following the same script of recent games, the Eagles crammed most of their good football in a single half this sunny afternoon in Municipal Stadium. But dominance in the second half wasn't enough to keep the hard-hitting Cleveland Browns from a 28-7 decision that earned them undisputed possession of second place in the NFL's Eastern Division. For 58,275 delighted onlookers, so they got almost 60,000 in there. Knocked back on their heels by the blunderbuss, running of Jimmy Brown and the sharp passing of Mill Plum in the first half, the Eagles fought back gallantly to stymie Cleveland's attack until the final minutes of the last two periods. But their own attack was found wanting in the clutches, so they were forced to accept their third defeat as they toppled into third place. Until Bobby Mitchell, the same speedy back who raced 95 and 68 yards for the touchdowns that beat them here a year ago, raced 65 yards for Cleveland's final touchdown. The Eagles had held the home team to minus 14 yards in the third and fourth periods. Wow. While they had quite a few good scoring chances, the Philadelphians could pierce the vaunting Brown defenses for but a single tally. This was scored by Billy Barnes on a 4-yard pass from Norm Van Brocklin at the start of the fourth period on the 11th play of a 93-yard drive. It was the only second long drive the flock was able to muster all day. The Browns wrapped up their fourth straight and fifth victory of the campaign by marching 87, 54, 57 yards for touchdowns that earned them a 21-0 halftime lead. The rugged 228-pound Brown, who rumbled through the Eagle defenses in the manner of a runaway tank, raced 20 yards around left end for the first TD and made the second on a plunge from the one. Ray Renfro scored the third with an end zone catch on a 4-yard pass from Plum before the Eagles had a chance to get their own attack moving. Brown, who appears to be an even stronger runner than he was a year ago when he took league rushing honors, amassed 125 of the 133 net yards gained by the Browns on the ground. He contributed 42 yards on 6 carries on Cleveland's first drive, carried on all but 2 of the 8 plays that the Browns needed for their second TD that stemmed with a Walt Michaels recovery of Tommy McDonald's fumble after a pass completion near midfield. He also had runs of 17 and 4 yards on the third drive. The Eagles' defensive unit, spearheaded by the aggressive play of rookie Joe Robb, Tom Catlin, and Bob Pellegrini, kept Brown under control in the second half, once actually stopping him on a 4th and 1 situation deep in Eagle territory. But unfortunately, the offensive unit couldn't produce the punch to make this good work pay off. Van Brocklin couldn't find his receivers when the big play was needed. Although he completed 23 of 40 tosses for 260 yards, that gave the Eagles a 314 to 311 edge in total net yardage. Van Brocklin's passes spearheaded a drive of 60 yards that carried to the Cleveland 9 near the end of the first half. But a pass into the end zone that caromed off of McDonald's hands was intercepted by Junior Wren to spike the bid. Early in the third period, the Eagles got close enough to give Paige Cothran a field goal try. All right, so we'll go to page 33. So what did Paige Cothran do on a field goal try? I'm going to say he probably missed it since they only scored 7 points. But he missed from the 40. There you go. But he missed from the 40 after a 28-yard drive had reached the 29. Near the end of the quarter, the Eagles finally got that one drive underway that couldn't be checked. Van Brocklin bringing it to a successful conclusion with his 4-yard pitch to Barnes after a 25-yard pass play involving the same receiver put the ball in position on the 6. Next time the Eagles got the ball, they drove 33 yards down to the 6. Passes of 15 and 19 yards to Pete Retzlaff accounted for the big yardage, but they drove from their own 33 down to the 6. Accounted for the big yardage, but Van Brocklin was unable to connect on 3 tosses into the end zone to 3 different receivers. The final toss was just missed by Bobby Walson's outstretched fingers. The Eagles later were held for downs on the Cleveland 33 just before Mitchell exploded through a hole at his own right tackle, cut sharply from the sidelines, and outraced Art Powell to the end zone on a 65-yard gallop that applied the finishing touch. Now they're the players. You see here. I mean, obviously, right? God, sorry, my dog is laying at my feet. But you see right here, right? There we go. And the Eagles, the Browns only had 16 first downs. The Eagles had 50. Eagles had like 67 yards rushing. Yards penalized. Browns nothing. The Eagles 20. Now you can see right here, right? Mitchell was really kept in check. He had the 65-yard run. Other than that, he had 4 carries, I guess, for -2 yards. But the Eagles couldn't get much of a running game going. Pretty much it was all relied on Norman Van Brocklin's passing. Spread it around pretty good. Barnes had 6 receptions, Retzlaff with 6, Peaks with 4, McDonald with 4, Walston with 2, Aaron Sapp had 1 for 13 yards. See, this is wrong. They got Van Brocklin over here passing for the Browns, so that this should be switched. Right. Although Barnes would throw for you, but the plum 12 out of 20 should be over here, and Van Brocklin should be over there. All right, so let's go to a couple Cleveland papers. We got the Cleveland Press, November 9th, 1959 edition of the Cleveland Press. There we go. Right, and they show you the Bobby Mitchell play. Play of the day, and here he is. Is this him? Browns launched Mitchell, the missile. Play of the day. Bobby, I keep forgetting. He got me, here we go. Bobby Mitchell broke loose for a 65-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter yesterday with the 3rd and 8 yards to go, and the Eagles line jammed in a 5-3 defense. Mill Plum faked to Jim Brown and handed off to Mitchell, who veered into the line at left tackle, then swerved back out before cutting downfield. Eagle left safety Art Powell, not shown, started running in behind right side of his line as the play started. Browns guard Gene Hickerson pulled out and put a key block on the cornerback, Tom Brookshire, who's on the ground. Oh, there we go. Right linebacker Tom Catlin, number 63, was first blocked by Browns tackle Willie Davis and then missed Mitchell as he cut across. Davis is behind Mitchell. The number 56 of the Browns is center Art Hunter. Renfro took safety man Gene Johnson out of the play. Other Eagles were tackled Don Owens and Joe Robb and linebacker Bob Pellegrini. Powell recovered in time to chase Mitchell, but he couldn't catch him. So here it is. This one to put the game on ice. So I mean, the first thing to do, I mean, you got Mitchell going this way, but one of the things is that especially with Brown, is that if he's going north and south, if you don't pay attention to that, God help you. Right? So if Plum's turning around and give a good fake to Brown, that's going to freeze the defense, because as I said, if you start thinking or start doing whatever else, and you give him a slither up the middle, you're not catching the guy. If he gets past you, nobody's catching the dude. So same thing with Mitchell though, but Brown's a little bit different. You're not catching him, and he's huge and he's strong. Bobby Mitchell was a lot smaller, in frame and all that. But I mean, so you have to pay attention, like a good quick trap up the middle or something like that. If Brown's got a hole, man, and he gets into that second, God bless you. You're not catching the dude. So, obviously right here, this is, taking up a lot of attention right here. Then of course, fake it to Brown, then you give it to Mitchell going out wide out here. And if you get some good blocking, right? We had Gene Hickerson coming out here taking down Brookshire. Knock Brookshire to the ground. Renfro coming down here, taking out Johnson. Powell, I guess, coming over here looking for, obviously this is a problem. If this is what happened here, if Powell came here and then started cutting in toward the line, then he had to try to bounce. I mean, once again, you got Bobby Mitchell out there. You got Bobby Mitchell in the open. God bless you. I mean, good luck trying to catch that guy. So, just a well-designed play, especially if they were able to seal everything off out here, right? There, this is the way you draw it up. But I mean, if you actually seal everything off here, have Renfro come down and take out Johnson, and Hickerson takes out Brookshire, and you got this nice little hole right here. And of course, because if Powell was the one that bounced it, came across maybe to try to take on Brown, but then, it started cutting down toward the line here, and then had to bounce it back out. You're not catching Mitchell. The Eastern Division race is beginning to seem like a treadmill to the Browns as they grind out a victory after victory without overtaking the Giants. It's 4 in a row now for the Browns after yesterday's 28-7 decision over the Eagles, who have been tied for second after a turnout of 58,275 at the stadium. The Giants, however, have won 5 straight on the strength of their defense, and that's because the first one in that string was at the Browns' expense. New York remains a game in front with 5 weekends to go. Praised by Shaw. Coach Buck Shaw, whose Eagles split 2 games with New York this season, had this comment. Although we got 314 yards, I'd say the Browns deserve to be compared with the Giants defensively now. And in the Browns' favor is the fact that they have an offense to go with a sturdy defense. It looks more and more as though Cleveland's return match with the Giants at Yankee Stadium on December 6th will pack all the drama and importance of last year's 2 epics on that same turf. Cleveland visits Washington next Sunday for a game between the 2 newest members of the Beat Baltimore club. Browns were fortunate yesterday that they didn't suffer that much feared letdown until they had run up a 21-0 lead at halftime. I was scared to death for this one the week after playing Baltimore, said a relieved Paul Brown. We got him pretty quick and then lost something from our offense. Actually, the Browns lost nearly everything from their attack. Their total net gain in the third and fourth quarter was a microscopic 24 yards, and 2 first downs until Bobby Mitchell swung around left end and sprinted 65 yards with less than 3 minutes remaining to send the fans home chattering. The Browns completely dominated the first half, except for Mitchell's run. It was all Philadelphia after the intermission. Jim Brown ran his touchdown total to 10 with a 20-yard run around left end in the first quarter and a 1-yard dive over a masked line 45 seconds into the second quarter. Brown's first TD climax, an 87-yard drive, and individual effort had much to do with the tally as he shook off 4 Eagles before stepping across the goal line with one last giant stride. On the Eagles' first play after that touchdown, Norm Van Brocklin passed to Tommy McDonald, who fumbled, and Walt Michaels recovered to set up a 54-yard march. Cleveland made it 3 TDs in 3 successive series with a 56-yard drive climaxed by a 4-yard pass from Milt Plum to Ray Renfro. The Browns pulled both flankers in tight for that one, and the Eagles expected they expected another assault by the fullback, Jim Brown. Renfro angled to the left and was alone going away toward the corner of the end zone. Sometimes when you get ahead, it's tough to stay up, said Paul Brown. The offense couldn't do it, but the Bulldog defense held the fort. Van Brocklin came to life in the second half and had the Browns worried with 18 completions for 200 yards. One toss went 4 yards to Billy Barnes for the Eagles' lone TD early in the fourth quarter. The Eagles, who had reached the Browns' 29 at the start of the third quarter, only to have a field goal attempt go wide, drove right back down to the 6 after the TD, but Van Brocklin momentarily lost his touch and fired 3 bad ones into the end zone. Philadelphia was stopped again at the Browns' 35 or 33 on the next series, and the crisis seemed ended. Mitchell made it dead certain with his gallop. Look at those Bobby the Missile Mitchell running for his life as he sailed 65 yards to a touchdown in the closing minutes of yesterday's triumph over the Eagles. He really was running to save his pride. I couldn't let anybody catch me. That's embarrassing, grinned the fast-stepping halfback as he adjusted his tie in the Browns' locker room. Mitchell was thinking back to 3 weeks ago when he was overhauled by Jim Hill of the Chicago Cardinals after dashing 68 yards. A penalty wiped out the play, but not the memory. Our pal, the Eagles fleet safety from San Jose State, tried in vain to overtake Mitchell yesterday. From a personal standpoint, Bobby hadn't had an outstanding afternoon up until his explosive run. He had taken a short pass to the right and shaken off Joe Robb to turn a potential loss into a 20-yard gain before Cleveland's first touchdown. And he had taken a punt, run hard to the left, and cut sharply down the sideline for a 32-yard gain in the third quarter. But the Eagles had the flips and flares well defensed, and Mitchell had a minus 2 yards rushing with 3 minutes to go. Ooh, that's embarrassing. It was third down 8 yards ago, and Philadelphia expected a smash by Jim Brown to help eat up the time. But I was really groping around when he sprung Mitchell on that play, said Paul Brown. Gene Ickerson cleared the way with his block. They played Jim tough and tight with just that one play, and whoosh, Mitchell was gone. Eagles coach Buck Shaw said, we felt we had Mitchell covered pretty well on the flares and so forth until he got away for the long run. That kind of speed is hard to contain. We certainly haven't faced any better fullback than Brown, Shaw continued. You must gang tackle him because he breaks out of so many tackles. Our tackling and blocking was pretty bad, and in the first half, particularly, we weren't putting enough pressure on Milt Plum. The combination of Plum when he's hitting with Brown inside and Mitchell outside is a very difficult thing to stop. Luke Rosa confined his activity to kicking the 4 extra points, although his sore back was healed enough to permit him to play in an emergency. Willie Davis went all the way at tackle, and Bob Kane did the kicking off. Bernie Parrish and Junior Wren combined to erase a Philadelphia touchdown threat late in the first half. Billy Barnes took a handoff and passed 9 yards to Tommy McDonald in the end zone, but Parrish leaped and batted the ball, and Wren made the grab. Wren got his second interception on the last play of the game. How about that stuff, groaned Billy Houghton, who twice broke into the clear and both times failed to hold long passes. Houghton felt he should have had the first one, but he said the second one was behind him. The weekly Sportsorama trophy went to linebacker Galen Fisk for his work against Washington here 2 weeks ago. Earlier awards this season went to Walt Michaels and Parrish. Okay, in case you're wondering. I wasn't. All right, then we have the Akron Beacon Journal, November 9th, 1959 edition of the Akron Beacon Journal. Browns on the NFL treadmill. Here we go. This is the same picture. The ball, Tom Brookshire falling down here. Nobody had a chance at an interception, but it fell incomplete. And once again, here is the stats. All right, what do we got here? What do we got? Paul Brown was trying to explain his team's spotty 28-7 win over the Eagles when he got the sad word. The Giants had just won their fifth straight without scoring a touchdown. I think they won 9-3 over the Cardinals. The news tended to spoil Paul's day. Doesn't look like we can count on any help from the other clubs, he said. If we're going to get out in front, we'll have to beat the Giants ourselves. The way things are going, the Browns will have to beat the Giants twice if they're to get into the title playoff. This is a sizable order, considering that the Browns have lost 4 straight to the New Yorkers, 3 last year and 1 thus far this season by 10. They lost 10-6 earlier on October 11th. That's when the Giants played in Cleveland. Moreover, it would appear that the Giants have the easier schedule down to the wire. They meet teams with a collective record of 12 wins and 15 losses, while the Browns take on 5 opponents who have thus far won 21 and lost only 13. These include both division leaders, the Giants and the 49ers. That means that the Browns have to play the 49ers, who are 6-1, and the Giants are 6-1. Buck Shaw, after watching his Eagles fall out of the running despite a fine second-half effort yesterday, rated the Browns as strong as the Giants defensively and thought they have more weapons on offense. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Giants have some fine weapons, but, I mean, they don't have Jim Brown. Although the Giants have Frank Gifford, who was a better receiver than Brown, who could throw the football. He's a fine runner, but he's not as explosive as Jim Brown is, obviously. And then, of course, you got Bobby Mitchell, too. Browns used 3 of the offensive weapons, Jim Brown's power, Bill Plum's passing, and Bobby Mitchell's speed, for their 28 points against the Eagles, 21 of them by midway of the second period. Thereafter, they got their defensive unit a good workout before a comfortable crowd. On a fine Indian summer day, Browns went 87 yards on 10 plays in the first quarter for Brown's first touchdown. The big fellow swinging left and scoring from 20 yards out after 9 minutes and 40 seconds. They went 54 yards on 8 plays for Brown's second touchdown and his 7th consecutive. Big Jim banging over from the 1-yard line after 15 seconds into the second quarter. They went 56 yards on 7 plays midway of this period, Plum climaxing the drive with a 4-yard touchdown toss to Ray Renfro. During the first half, the Browns gained 222 yards to only 88 by the Eagles, Plum hitting on 10 of 14 passes for 128, and Brown carrying 17 times for 92 yards at halftime. The Eagles did almost all the offensive work in the second half, however, outgaining the Browns by 226 yards to 89. Van Brocklin accounting for 187 yards on 18 hits and 30 passes. Their first offensive thrust in the second half reached the Browns 31, only to fail when Paige Cothran's field goal effort went astray. Late in the quarter, the Eagles stopped Jim Brown on a fourth down smash and took the possession on their own 7-yard line. They were out to the 41 when the quarter ended and continued with their lone touchdown on 6 plays in the fourth quarter. Van Brocklin passing to Billy Barnes from 4 yards out. On this 93-yard assault, actually 98 counting an offside penalty, Van Brocklin's passing to Barnes, Clarence Peaks, and Pete Retzlaff accounted for 91. The Eagles gestured at a second touchdown only minutes later after Junior Wren's poor punt rolled dead on the Browns' 39. They reached the 29 on 2 pitches and just missed a 6-pointer when Bernie Parrish managed to tip Van Brocklin's next pass from the hands of Tom McDonald on the goal line. Van Brocklin then connected with Retzlaff on the Browns' 10, Warren Lauren making the big stop. On second down, Peaks carried to the 6, but 3 passes failed off their marks. Schaffner spoiled 2 intended for Retzlaff in the end zone, and the third from Bobby Walston just missing. And of course, instead of being down, I guess 21-7, I guess it was at that point. I guess they still needed, they obviously needed 14 points. If they kicked the field goal, they still were going to be down 11 points, which back in those days, 11 points wasn't going to be a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, and a field goal. That was going to be, you needed more than that because there was no 2-point conversion back then. Schaffner took over the punting chore to get the Browns out of the hole after the touchback, his kick going to the Eagles' 45. The visitors' next drive ended when Walt Kowalczyk failed to get the necessary yards for first down on the Browns' 33. Perhaps the Browns were scared by the resurging Eagles or felt they had fooled around long enough and owed their fans a bit of show in the second half, too. Anyhow, on third down, Mitchell swung left at his 35-yard line and outran anyone and everyone who had a mind to chase him for 65 yards and the final touchdown with 2 minutes and 47 seconds left on the clock. Paul Brown was concerned, lest we suggest in this report, that the Browns held back after their quick 21 points, as we did after their early lead against the Cardinals. Brown says they didn't hold back, that their effort was as great in the second half as in the first, just not as productive. Brown said he worried over this game since the big day in Baltimore. He was afraid the Browns would be flat as a result of their great emotional and physical outburst. He thinks they came through Sunday's big test in splendid fashion and insists he wasn't confident they had it wrapped up until Mitchell's long run. While the Browns thought the Eagles played like a powerful team, especially in the second half, Shaw moaned that it was their worst 60 minutes of football this year. Explaining the odd decision to kick off after the Eagles won the toss, Shaw said, "I've always had a feeling that the stadium field runs uphill toward the west. I'm probably wrong. It may be as flat as a billiard table, but it appears slanted." Then, too, by kicking, it gave us the wind at our back. We thought we'd kick, stop the Browns, get a punt near midfield, and start moving in from there. It just didn't work out. It might have. The Browns' punt averaged only 32 yards despite Schaffner's one good kick. Punting is their one noticeable weakness. All right. What do we got here? And then, let's see here. Share screen. I got it here somewhere. Let me see. Oh, I got all right, we got the news, the daily news, the Philadelphia Daily News. Let me pop this up here real fast. Philadelphia Daily News. Where are we at here? Where are we at? Is that it? Might be it. Okay. This time, half a game wasn't enough. When you get down to earth, Eagles' Billy Barnes is grounded by Lou Groza of Browns after gaining 8 yards in the first quarter. 30-minute football might see the Eagles through the likes of the Cardinals and the Redskins, but the quick-triggered Cleveland Browns just don't play it that way. A flock of unhappy birds admitted this yesterday after giving Coach Paul Brown's Stormtroops too much too soon and paying for it in the wrong side of a 28-7 score at Cleveland Municipal Stadium. Can't figure it out, Coach Buckshaw admitted. This is the third straight week we played half a ball game, and the pattern keeps changing. Against the Cardinals, we were flat in the first half. Against the Redskins last week, we had a bad second half. Today was the first half again. Look at the figures for that first period. We had the ball 3 minutes for 7 plays and 31 yards. They got off 21 plays for 147 yards, and they were going in for their second touchdown when the period ended. You just can't give those Browns a head start like that and expect to survive. Whatever their expectations were after falling behind 21-0 in the disastrous first half, the Eagles certainly fought for survival. In the second half, they dominated play even more than Cleveland had in the first 2 periods, rolling up 226 yards to the Browns' 89. But there was shallow consolation in these statistics because you couldn't prove them by the scoreboard. Now, don't forget that the Browns only had 89 yards, but 65 of it was on that Bobby Mitchell run. So basically, Cleveland had 24 yards in the whole second half until that run. The Browns had to punch when they needed it. Mostly it was Jim Brown, the 230-pound all-everything who rumbled for 91 yards and the first two touchdowns in the first half. But Mil Plum, the vastly improved quarterback from Woodbury, New Jersey, which is about 10 miles from where I'm sitting right now, played a credible part in the fast break too. Taking his untroubled time behind the most efficient line the Eagles have faced this year, Plum picked his receivers right on 10 of 14 attempts for 128 yards and 1 touchdown strike to the speedy Ray Renfro. Plum didn't net a yard passing against the second half Eagles, and Brown was limited to 34 yards on 12 carries. But the damage was done. The Browns gave the Eagles large chunks of the field, but they gave them the goal line only once on a 4-yard pass from Norman Brocklin to hustling Billy Barnes. The Birds' 1 defensive lapse neutralized that score and iced the game for Cleveland. With the line bunched tight to stop Brown, especially like up the middle, right? I said, you give him a little opening and he gets into that secondary, God help you. Stop Brown. Plum sent Bobby Mitchell around left hand and guard Gene Hickerson. A devastating block on Tom Brookshire was all the former Big Ten sprint champ needed to streak free for 65 yards in the final touchdown of the afternoon. Even the second half Eagles couldn't win. Let's see here. It's great to be in the big leagues, Big Sid Younkelman gloated after helping the Browns knock the Eagles out of their second-place tie in the Eastern Conference. Sidney is a likable fellow even when gloating, and he insists he really harbors no malice against the Eagles for cutting him loose last season. I felt terrible when it happened, but it all worked out for the best, the defensive tackle declared. I ran all summer and reported to the Browns weighing 251. He's up to 262 now. They moved Bob Gain over to defensive end to make room for me. It was the biggest achievement of my life. Youngelman praised tackle Jim McCusker as the best newcomer on the Eagles' offensive line, and he singled out, of course, Chuck Bednarik as the best all-around man up front. But when are they going to wise up and make Jess Richardson all-pro? He demanded. If there's a better defensive tackle in this league, I haven't seen him yet. I don't want to take anything away from the Eagles, Cleveland coach Paul Brown began, and then he proceeded to do so by adding, but when you build up a 21-0 lead as easily as we did, you're bound to lose something in the second half. Fullback Jimmy Brown wasn't in a talking mood after being held to 34 yards in the second half, but his 91 in the first half gave him enough head start to hike his average to a fraction less than 98 yards per game. Wow. So, I mean, Jim Brown averaged almost 100 yards a game rushing. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. And it was a running league back then. They knew they'd given the ball to him. I mean, it was just absolutely incredible. So I said that, but these teams, I mean, because believe the next week the Giants would actually wind up losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Giants would have 2 losses, and after next week, the Browns would have 3 losses, the Eagles would have 3 losses, the Giants would have 2 losses. So with about 4 weeks left to go in the season, they'll all bunch back up together once again. But it was not meant to be, as it said in that one article, the Giants had a relatively easy final 4 or 5 games or so, and that proved that right. The Giants would, after they lost 14-9 to the Pittsburgh Steelers at Yankee Stadium, the Giants would win the rest of the games. And it said that the Browns would lose 3 out of the final 4, and they fell out of contention. I said with the Eagles, the Eagles had a chance, but they never ran off anything, really. I mean, they would lose one, as I showed you, lose 1, win 2, lose 1, win 2. So, I mean, even though they were always seeming to win 2 in a row, after those 2 wins, they would be followed by a loss. And the fact that they would lose 2 out of their final 3 games of the season, once again, took them out of contention. But as I said in the beginning, both teams were 7-5, but for the Browns, it's a little bit on a disappointing side to finish 7-5 and 3 games out of first place, I said. But for the Eagles, they won 2 games in 1958, and all of a sudden they go from 2 wins to 7 wins in one season. Fantastic. Even though they lost this game, in the 1959 season for the Eagles was a very, very successful campaign. So that's the way it was on this date, November 8th, 1959, as the Philadelphia Eagles would take on the Cleveland Browns at Cleveland Stadium in pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.